Everybody doing tonight? Trying to get back to my my Tuesday, my late night Tuesday. So let people fall in. Mm. Give me a one in the chat if you can hear me. I should put my thumbnail up. So you see it in the red. We're gonna do a little business impact assessment today. Let's see. I think I'm gonna switch over and play this video while it's coming up. Give me one in the chat if you can hear me. We're gonna probably get started and just let people fall in. Give me one in the chat if you can hear me. We're gonna talk a little NIST today. This came about. I was in somebody's Discord and we were talking about what's up, Rondo, Mondo? What's up? Alchemine, what's up, Casual Economist? Appreciate you. So you see it, we're gonna talk about business impact assessment. When you do DR or COOP or business continuity, business impact, and we're gonna get more into it. You go through all your business processes and you number them kind of one through the least important. Then your business leaders figure out which ones they want to do. Um, it came about because we were discussing DR, and especially for large companies. A lot of people know I work for DOD in a large state. You're not going to DR everything. So how do you figure out what are you going to DR? You do a business impact assessment to figure out what you're going to DR. What's up, Aiken? Glad you can join me. So we're gonna get started. I'm sure we go back and forth. Y'all know how we do it. If you got any tech questions or cybersecurity questions, it doesn't have to be exactly about this. Just put them in the box and we'll answer them and get to moving. So, like I said, I'm in a lot of people's Discord. Once again, this came up, so a lot of people were talking about what order should you do DR, COOP, incident response, and business impact. What's up, NC Worker? Glad you can join me. Appreciate the barbecue fun for my man. So once again, we're gonna hit it, and once again, if you got any questions, just put them in the box. So this came off of course, this is a NIST. Everybody know I live in that NIST world. I think it's NIST, and it's coming up. I think it's 161, which is business continuity. We're gonna look at the security family too. Once again, if you got any tech questions or cybersecurity questions, put them in the box. So business continuity planning, organizations should ensure incident response policies and procedures. Business continuity processes are in sync. Especially I do a hack like every other day. So part of the hack is if you get ransomware or DDoS or whatever, you can roll over to a DR site, roll up in the cloud, roll up on prem, but you should have a plan in place right for that. So I think this is where the business continuity come and business impact assessment figures out what order you should do it in and what is the most valuable resources. And we're going to get in about how do you figure that out and talk about. At the end, we're going to do a super short exercise and kind of walk through it. Computer security incidents undermines business resilience of an organization. I like that word, resilience. Continuity planning professionals should be aware of incidents and their impact so they can fine tune business impact assessments, risk assessments, continuity of operations. Further, because business continuity planners have extensive expertise in minimizing operational disruption during severe circumstances, they may be valuable in planning responses to certain situations, like we talked about, such as denial of service or usually DDoS, right? They got the bot farm, the herd farm, right? And they're giving you 90 petabytes of information to see if you can handle that. But I've done a lot of DR exercise and DR planning. And one thing about DR is you got to be comfortable with all the other teams you DRing, right? You got to work with the DBAs, you got to work with the infrastructure guys, you got to work with the development team, just different teams. So as as a DR specialist or continuity specialist, you got to be comfortable with multiple teams and understand the technologies at least at a high level. So once again, you can interact with those different teams. So once again, if you got any questions, put them in there. And just a quick drive at the top is the details how it functions, right? That's the business process assessment, right? What processes do you have going on in there? The what we're focused on is once again the BIA, business impact analysis, identify the most likely threats, hazard, and the organization face in performing those functions. Then once you get the business impact, you can start talking about risk management. Identify risk mitigation strategies that can reduce the risk from those. Identify threats and hazards. You can reduce the risk, transfer the risk, avoid it, or accept it. Right. So those are the three big issues. And part of the business impact is, and we're going to talk about, like I said at the end, and I don't know if people remember the Cronus episode about 2 years ago. Cronus was a pay site that had ransomware. A lot of companies didn't get paid on Christmas because Cronus, your third party assessor, got ransomware. So you as a company should be able to create that pay file, put it in a proper format, and send it to ADP or another third vendor, right? That's how we're going to mitigate the risk, right? So we're going to have Cronus as our main vendor, but if we need to take a pay file, put it in a different format, and send it to somebody else to print, we should have that on deck, right? To get people, quickest way to get people to quit is not pay them on Christmas, right? So that's a high risk, right? So how do we mitigate that risk? We're going to walk through there, right? So instead of Cronus that got hacked 2 or 3 years ago, if you got hacked again, how are you doing, Adrian Dash? Nice to see you. Um, so that's how we're going to mitigate that risk, and we're going to just kind of walk through at the end and see what that actually looked like. Once again, it's in a contingency family, so y'all know I'm a NIST guy. So in the contingency family, right, we got the policies and procedure. We're just gonna hit the contingency plan. That's where you're gonna have your business impact analysis. Of course, we're gonna have training, plan testing, right? You always have to test your DR, your COOP plan. COOP is a little different, right? COOP is where your people are going to go, and DR is where your computer is going to go. Now, we just kind of figured out most companies like just give everybody laptops. So if they got to go home, right? And that's what COVID kind of figured out, right? So we got everybody set up. We got you on a VPN. So if you need to go home and work, we should have that set up and ready for you to go, right? Then once again, you got the contingency planning on that. What's up, Jim R? Glad you can join us. Let's keep going on the NIST contingency family alternate processing site. In the old days, if your building got hit, you would probably go over to another building or another data center. Now you just spend that stuff in the cloud. If your telecommunication services get hit, how are you going to do it, right? So a lot of times with cell phones, you would go over to your cell phones instead of your corporate phone. System backups. We're going to talk about that. What level of backup and how much time do you want to lose, right? And we'll talk about those MTRs and those different volumes. So a lot of people want zero loss. With zero loss, you can do it, right? It's going to cost you a lot of money, though. So how much data can you lose? Are you taking backups every day, every other day? You taking differentials? You taking incremental? So how much of that can you lose, and how quick do you need to get that up, right? And once again, we're going to hit it. System recovery reconstitution. Once you get your system back online, how do you go from your DR site back to your primary site? That's a lot harder than you think. We did it one time and we forgot to change the indexes on the records. So we moved it back to the primary site. We had primary keys hitting each other. If you understand, long story short, there's usually keys and IDs. We were doing sequential keys. When we brought it back, we forgot to increase our primary. So we were stepping keys on there. So you got to, go through that testing to make sure you have all that worked out. The tools, alternate communication mode, safe mode. Let's see, and I think there's one more. So yeah, that just want to hit. That's the NIST family of that. So we just want to make sure we hitting those proper NIST controls and understand what those are. PBL protect the pay tracks. Facts, man. We We can't have nobody not get paid. And I'm gonna play the video on that Kronos hack. I think that was 2 years ago. And there was about 5 people that was in my subs that said they weren't getting paid. I was like, oh no, PBO might quit. So gotta make sure we get paid on Prim. Gotta split the cloud up in multiple. Facts, 8317. You facts on that. Yeah, like he talking about. Usually in AWS, you got on the east and west coast. I'm in the Midwest. So if one region goes down, you have to spin up. So he's 100% correct. A lot of times you got to be careful because a lot of these new companies, they trying to send my data off in Ireland in case the whole United States go off. I'm like, dude, I'm this. You got to keep all my data inside the United States. So you got to watch people. But he's 100% correct. The cool thing is I would have multiple regions. But even in your regions, a lot of times, the bigger regions like the West Coast, they have 6 data centers that are 75 miles or more apart. So those regions, I still would copy them to a different region just in case. But AWS has a region go down probably every other year where the whole region goes down. Like I said, I think West has 6 data centers. I think Chicago's got 4 data centers. So what AWS does is when you have data centers, they're 75 miles apart, and each data center has a different electric company, a different communication company, a different phone company. So if any one of those phone companies get hit in that region, your other centers in that region are using different electricity, different power to try to mitigate that. Once again, AWS has infinite money. So let's see. We got all the cybersecurity breaches going on. Glendale comment. Yeah, everybody's got hit. I got to look that one up. Yeah, college, and I wrote about this. Colleges have some of the worst security on the planet. A lot of times, I think their budgets are small, which is kind of crazy since they paid Jimbo Fisher $75 million not to coach a football team, but that's a whole different subject. Yeah, I looked that up though. But yeah, colleges got to do a better job with their DR site. Have you ever had to deal with either cold, warm, or high site issues? Oh yeah, all the time. Because you got to remember, I got my first degree in 1988 when it was mainframe. So mainframe already had cold sites, right? Then we got a little more into client server, boxes, even Unix boxes. You got more warmer because they were cheaper, right? When you talk about a cold site, you can't, having 2 IBM mainframes were super expensive. So that's kind of how you had a cold site. We could order one, they could drop it in the data center within 2 weeks because you just couldn't afford to pay them now. Hardware is so cheap now, Aiken. So yeah, I've done all of those, right? So now hot sites. Shout out to my man 8317. You can just spin up a hot site in AWS. In your other regions, what do they call it? Oh yeah, Pilot, where I have 2 small VMs. But if my main region goes down, once it starts going down, my my automation to spin up 100 servers or whatever I need, Aiken. So now, so yeah, over the years, hardware just got so much cheaper. You talking about VMs and AWS, you can get them for $3 or $4 a day, right? So then when you need them, you can spin up to that size. So yeah, it's called Pilot. So yeah, I've done all of those. So yeah, once again, I started off at Code because in 1988, you just weren't gonna have 2 big IBM mainframes. It was $1 million computers. Then we went to the VAX, Unis, Solaris. We had warm sites. You could get 2 of those, not too expensive. Maybe something a little smaller, because once again, we're gonna get to 9 times out of 10 back then. You wasn't gonna DR your whole site, so you have a couple of smaller Solaris box for the warm. Now on the cloud, you can just spin it up, shut it down, whatever you need. So yeah, I've done all of those, Aiken. So my man 3, is there international standard that protects you from obeying foreign laws and circumstances? There are international standards that protects you from obeying foreign. So when you say protect from obeying foreign, if that foreign law is not in our best interest, how we protect it is NIST is they just say it's called CONUS. You can only keep your data in continental United States, so you don't have to worry about foreign data. That's why everybody's freaking out about GDPR. It's like, dude, we don't want anybody from Europe because then we're compelled to do GDPR, which means I have European records inside my database. So the way to get for obeying that is you just don't have those citizens inside your database. So the companies I work for, we're real strict about what citizens are in our database and how we push back on that. Once again, this says your data has to stay in CONUS on top of that. So that's how we get around to that. Shout out to Excel Pro. I always watch my videos. I always give me a comment. So I'm definitely saluting. So here's just the workflow. We're gonna get into it more. Key steps in the business. We're gonna pick a team. So usually you have your uh, DR team, your Coop team already set up. Usually it's just a part of your cybersecurity team, right? So our cybersecurity team was small, so we just picked 3 people to handle that and set up your scope and objectives. Once again, what business functions do you want to set up for um, business continuity? What business functions do you want to set up in DR, right? And we're going to get into that, right? You don't really talk systems because remember, we're talking to the C-suite. They're going to say HR is in there. And then when we say this HR function, which is payroll, so I'm trying to tell you what the exercise is. When we say payroll, underneath payroll, we know, okay, it's a SQL Server box, it's 2 web servers, and it's the apps that help payroll, right? It could be 3 or 4 different systems that help in payroll, but from a business function and C-suite, it's just payroll, right? They don't know if it's an Oracle database or a SQL Server. Now we need to know that, right? Because we're gonna need to back it up, spin it up. What's gonna be our RPO and RTO? How much data can we lose if we go down? We're gonna need to know that. We're gonna walk through that. So that's gonna tell you what kind of database, what's your backup? Is your backup hot? Are we big copying stuff from our primary to our data center because we don't want to lose any data, right? So we're going to touch on that. Gathering information, and that's kind of what we're talking through, how we're going to gather that information. Document findings. A lot of times we work with the vendor, working with the business analyst. A lot of this stuff, we're writing the documents. Shout out to it. I was just lucky enough to always have documentation specialists. So I can give him all the information and he smooth it out, right? Then once again, we're going to present that to leadership because the CEO is going to want to know that, the CIO wants going to want to know that, and the chief security information officer. Why is that? A lot of those business requirements are state statutes or federal statutes or something we got to do legally, right? A lot of people know I work for the Department of Revenue, reporting to the IRS. So if you had a tax return, if we didn't send your tax return out in 3 days, once we got it, we have to pay you interest by state statute. So of course that's going to be very high on our business impact analysis. We don't want to pay we don't want to pay interest, right? So that's one thing we're going to talk about. How do you rank your business functions? A lot of that, once again, I did a lot of federal work and state work. So you have a lot of legal requirements. So legal in the room said, oh yeah, legally we got to do this. Shout out to Mr. Governor. So legal's going to be in the room saying, hey, we got to do this legally. We got to do that. If we don't do this, then we can get fined, right? So legal's going to be in the room. You as a cybersecurity expert, especially once you get a senior, you'll start picking up on those laws because you're in a meeting, right? I know once again, state statute for IRS. I did a lot of IRS work. I know you got to get them a notice within the 24 hours. I know if there's another couple other federal IRS, like when you get the paperwork, how long you got to get it before you got to send them a bill. So there's a lot of things. Once again, you just pick it up because you hanging out with legal and you working through those issues with legal. So at a high level, we see over there incorporating the BIA findings, document strategy, supporting information. We got the POC list, procedures, notifications, recovery phases, reconstitution phase, and the appendix, right? Point of contact list is because when you go down, you might not be able to get into your Office 365. You might not be able to get into your laptop for a minute, right? Until we spin stuff up. So you got to have people's numbers so you can physically call them, right? 2 is a lot of times we said, okay, we can't even get into corporate emails. Everybody's got Gmails, right? Because this is just for DR or incident response or business continuity, but we cannot put PII information if we're using Gmail. Gmail is just kind of get us up to a certain part before we start rolling. Hopefully your Teams is up. Hopefully you got Teams is in got a DR plan, but every now and then Microsoft goes down. The weirdest thing, I was at DOD and email went down. I never knew how much we knew use email until it went down. We like, what's the plan, right? So that's kind of we had to come up. Appreciate you. Let's see. What is the real odds of American internet being cut off? How long would it take to come back up? The odds of that is small. The reason why is the the internet was created by DARPA. There's probably, I'm guessing, there's probably 40 internet servers. So they would have to hit each one of those internet servers, Scamp Diesel. So for it to all go down, you got to remember those big companies, right? Those are ran by Verizon and Akamai. They all got DR processes too. And I always remember, he's not one of my favorite people, but um, what's Elon Musk? Starlink. Foreign companies was using Starlink. I believe Starlink is on our DR plan for the United States. We're gonna come and abscond with DR. We're gonna do a search warrant and just take over Starlink. The United States will not be down very long, Scamp Diesel. I'm just throwing that out, but I believe, because remember he was using that for Ukraine, right? So if he could use the Ukraine, we would take it over, Scamp Diesel. So I don't think the United States would be down for long if that happened. I mean, so I would think it would be done because we do way too much business on it. And if you do, oh my God, I think it was called Winter. The financial industry is doing DR for all the big banks that do stock trading and all that stuff because they think they're going to be taxed. So they already got DR plans in works, and the United States government is testing those. I promise you. So shout out to Before the Billion. So, but yeah, that's just my 2 cents. Shout out to Ty. Shout out to my man, Portfolio.o, $10 for the barbecue fund. Appreciate you. Let's see. I'm wiped this evening. Need some facts, man. I don't know why I'm tired. I just been tired. So let's keep rolling. We're gonna get into the business impact. So now we're gonna start getting to some stuff. The purpose of BI is to identify and prioritize system components by correlating them to mission and business processing system support by using the information characterizing the impact process. BI is composed of 3 steps. We're going to determine the mission process. All companies do this, right? We had different ones. When I worked at DOD, was make sure the warfighter gets paid. When I worked for Department of Revenue, we wanted to be a world-class Department of Revenue, right? So everybody has their mission critical ones. Identify impact of system disruption. Determine along an outage impact and estimated downtime. The downtime should reflect the maximum that an organization can tolerate while maintaining the system. So once again, some of that's going to be legal requirements. Some for sure. Thanks for this. You welcome. And two, like we said, some of that's going to be federal laws. Some of that's going to be state laws. Some of that's going to be city laws. Some of that was ours, was the governor's project, what he wants to happen in our organization, right? So he wanted you to be up on time. He wanted people to get paid. He wanted calls answered at a certain time for DR. Why is that? He's judged on how we do work for the citizens and the constituents of the state of Indiana. He gets judged on that. So if we fail, he might not get elected, right? So he sets up these impacts and disruptions. He flows that down. We had commissioners, which is actually presidents of agencies at large states. So he would tell them what he wants to focus on, right? And some of that's before he can get reelected, right? So you just got to salute the flag and keep it pushing, right? So let's keep it going, right? So that's it. So I broke down the list. The list of organizations should include, we saw description of each function in basic terms, requirements to form each function, listing applicable, like we talked about, statute, regulations, presidential directives, and other legal authorities, the products or service delivered, or each action function. Example is protect critical infrastructure, maintain and ensure operational capabilities, provide medical service to veteran, manage facilities, leave emergency response for the efforts during the disaster recovery. Right, you got to remember, I work for the state, so the first things on the states BIA incident response is first responders. I always thought my organization was going to be first because we funded the state. We took tax money. Nah, we were like on page 3, sheriff, state police, national guards, right? Now, most people in the private sector don't have to worry about that. But once again, we're talking about federal and state. So that first responders, they got to be up. So once again, we did it as an organization inside the state. Each organization did it. Then each agency got ranked for the level impact, right? If state police is down, first responders, if there's an earthquake, right, they have to respond, right? So whatever systems they're using have to be up. So you got to rank them with inside your state, but inside your company. I work for Fortune 500 pharmaceuticals, man. They had divisions in Spain, right? So we had to rank all those divisions and rank all those business functions. And two is when you do a DR, you're not going to spin up everything. So that's why you're doing this, the BIA, business impact, so you can rank what you really need to spin up. Then two is you can come up with a cost, time limit. And two is, can you even do it? Right. And we'll talk about that later. Sometimes we had legacy systems. We like, dude, we ain't gonna never come up in 6 hours. I don't care how much money we spend, right? It just wasn't gonna happen. Once again, if you got any questions, put them in the chat, even though I think I just toasted my chat. Let me see if I can get it to come back. I did something. Peace. Glad you can make it. Let's keep rolling. Once again, if you got any questions, put them in the chat. You might have to put them in there. I erased something in my chat. Let's see what's going on. Who makes the call to fail over to the cloud? Is there keep a live signal? A lot of times, well, there's two things. A lot of times, especially in AWS, it has a health check. So if it can't hit a load balancer within a minute or two, it'll fail over to the other one, right? So it goes from your load balancer to your particular subnet. So if your web server doesn't get anything back to it, it'll fail over to another region. But sometimes from an old legacy, when we did DR on-prem, which was crazy, when I was at the state, the governor made the call. I'm like, how's that gonna work? So if it went automatic, sometimes you would have to force it to fail over. The governor would make the call. But now a lot of times, so you got health checks a lot of times now with the new, especially with AWS, coming through your load balancer to your different regions, you can tell it how long to keep trying before it fails over. So it would automatically do that. Right. Two is you can always tell what your scale group is. So if you want to scale small because you want to pay a lot of extra money, because if your site's up and even if it's down, if those servers are up, you're getting charged for them. So instead of having 100 servers, like we talked about, you're not going to DR everything. So maybe you're going to spin up 5 or 6 servers for each function, because you're not going to spin up your whole company. So what's up, especially legacy systems, that's not facts. Like I said, we used to fail over to our other data center. I ain't gonna say who. We struggled. We failed over and it was like, oh, the DNS didn't come. That's why you got to test it. Oh, we thought we were copying the database files over there, because if you ever done Oracle, they got redo files that's automatically supposed to get sucked in the database and keep them synced up. Yeah, it wasn't happening. So that's why you got to test it. But he's right. Legacy systems was rough. Like I said, a lot of the new stuff in AWS and Azure, a lot of that stuff is built in, especially if you're using Aurora. It's got databasing in each region you're in. It's automatically sync them up. It's a little more expensive, but it'll sync up your data and databases around the world, whatever region you want to be in, and you will lose no data and no time, right? So that's the beauty. It's going to cost a little more. What is a good pay antivirus for a personal computer? That's a good question. I just usually use Defender, to be honest, Gabby. I take good backup, so I usually just use Defender. It's dirt cheap with Microsoft. Now on business, now I don't want to give out any names. We spend a ton of money on business stuff for the companies I work for, right? Because they're getting a kind where you got the the sandbox, you put it in there, it tries to detonate the file before you open it, right? Personal, I would just use Defender. My thing is, I use Defender. I think I upgraded to do the web filters, so it takes your IP to make sure you're not going out to um, a foreign nation or something. But I just use that. It's not very expensive. Let's say a warm site would work, right? Yeah, a warm site would work. Not a problem is the issue with a warm site is it usually takes like 6 or 7 hours to bring it fully because you got servers on there, but there's probably no, you got to manually install the database. You got to manually start spinning up web servers and app servers, right? You got to start jury rigging a little bit, Ty. And a lot of times too is, I remember we did something, we like, oh, we forgot to copy the Active Directory over there, right? So, but it was test, not real live. So a lot of times you got to make sure all your stuff is lined up where if it's hot, you're testing it, it's working, right? So that's on it. Yeah, you can do a warm site. You just got to make sure everything's over there. Like I said, we did some, and I'm like, oh, how are we going to, the network's down. We all over here. Long story short, we tested it was working, but our DR site was actually pointing back to our Active Directory in our main site. We like, well, the main site wasn't going to be here, so how's that going to work in real life? Somebody just called it, Ty. So you just got to go through and walk through everything. And a lot of times it's hard to cut your primary site. We kept asking to cut down our primary site, but other state agency was running in there. They're like, nah, man, we can't cut the whole primary site out. Well, how do we know it's gonna work in real life? Right? We like, let's cut. I like, nah, we ain't doing that. And long story short is the other part of that is we were decent agencies, but a lot of agencies wasn't up to where we were. So if they cut it off, they didn't have any DR on their site. So it's kind of trying to get a full test sometime is hard, Ty. That's what we were struggling with. We were getting better though as we did it and started looking for stuff and start cutting off certain IPs like to the Active Directory from our VM so we can know that it's what's going to happen in real life. How are we syncing those domain servers up to make sure once again it can run in the DR site and not the prime site. So that's some of the stuff we were. But once again, it's a lot easier now when the cloud in the old days was hard. So that's what we're talking about. Business disruption, physical damage to a building, damage to breakdown of machinery and systems, restricted access, building interruption, the supply chain, including failure of suppliers. That's what we're going to talk about when Coronas couldn't print out checks for people during Christmas, right? So that's kind of what we're going to walk through in the exercise at the end. Damage to loss or corruption of information technology, voice and data communication. Now your voice and your data just really on one network. So if one goes down, there both goes down, right? So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's see what's in there. Let's see. BR is not fun. Business kind of sex. So it's leadership guiding business. And I tell you, the more you sweat a piece, the less. No, 100% facts. You know, Jim, or the hard part of that is, I'm gonna tell you a quick story. Is we got all the business units in there, and we start going through that. People feelings got hurt. People thought they were important, but they wasn't on a BI implementation plan in DR because we couldn't do everything, right? So that's why you need leadership in there because people say, oh, we need to definitely have us in DR. Management's like, nah, we ain't doing that, right? So that's why you got to have leadership and management, right? Because it's got to come from the top. And two is you still got a budget for it, even if it's in the cloud, right? Even if I got to do a pilot, right? I still got a web server upstairs. I still got an app server. I'm still copying my data files or hopefully syncing it to a master slave and spinning it up if the one goes down, right? So how would that look in real life and how that's going to work, right? Aurora is kind of cool because they took MySQL and Postgres, then they put databases in each region, and Amazon's got the fiber around the world, so it automatically syncs up in microseconds when you save some, right? So you very rarely lose anything, but it's a little more expensive. So that's kind of what I'm pushing clients to do, especially if you have federal requirements. So let's keep going. So identify and prioritize that. Oh, the second part, identify resource requirement, like we talked about. Realistic recovery efforts require a thorough evaluation of the resource required to resume mission, and business process related to interdependencies as quickly as possible. Example of resources should be identified. Once again, facilities, personnel, equipment, software, data files, system components, and vital records. The really, we don't talk about it much. It really was after 9/11, right? DOD came up in a lot of states, said, if we get hit and all things gone, is how are we going to continue to do business, right? Which is just a little drastic, but we printed checks for retirees for the Army. They were like, okay, if this facility goes down and we get taxed, how do you roll it over? Because we want to make sure people gets paid, right? The same thing. That's what made me think of Cronus. We want to make sure our constituent gets paid, our employees get paid, our retirees get paid, or everybody gets paid, right? Money for everybody. You get to check. No, I'll just play. So that's where it came from. And we're going to get in there and just start looking at some of that too. Let's see right here. I'm gonna show some. NIST has insider documentation. Of course, I just read and put in my machine. I'll show some. NIST 161 has BI documentation, and if you go to FedRAMP.gov, they have their BI documentation. I like FedRAMP.gov, but it's for big companies and it's kind of heavy. So I thought NIST was pretty good. I'm trying to find one that's for a smaller company, but we'll look up both of those and just take a peek at those from the documentation standpoint. I think I took some screenshots to be exact. How much information from BIs communicate to stakeholders? How does it support effective communication within the all the it's it's in the information communicated business who's to the business leader of that division and even up to the CEO part because the CEO and the C-suite's got to sign off on what they believe is important and what needs to spin up. Right. That's why you have legal in there, some of those legal responsibilities. So, and we're going to kind of walk through it. Usually we walk through it at the smaller companies, not as bad as who's over HR, who's over client services, who's over if we're selling an API or something, who were over those divisions. And once again, we got a little exercise and we're going to lay out all the business functions for that unit. Once we lay out the business functions, we can figure out what IT systems goes to those business functions. Then the C-suite, along with the president, they were in there because they were arguing. They need to say which one of those business functions needs to be DRR or cooped in a DRR situation. Once again, when I worked for a large agency, a state agency, we had 125 business functions. We only DR 20 of those. Number one is when you first start, you're not going to do everything. And two is for the money part. And the other thing is, once again, there was federal and state regulations with a lot of those 20 that had to bring up. But that has to be communicated to the stakeholders. And we were in the room with the executives hammering those out. So two is once we hammer those out and you kind of go through them, it doesn't take a lot because you go, okay, like we talked about, okay, payroll, definitely need that, right? Pay taxpayers, refund taxpayers, right? So you kind of know, and it says in there, what is your core business? What's your core functions? What are you trying to do as a business? So most people kind of know what's the money maker and what can they do and do without. So portfolio. So you just run that up the chain. And we're going to walk through one at the end real quick. The business recovery doc class, you have to think that out. Yeah, it's amazing what comes out. I was in the field and I was kind of amazed, like, oh, I didn't even think about that at all. Right. So a lot of time. And two is you don't have to get it right the first time. Right. So we try to do one every year. Okay, we want to do 20. We can only do 5 this year, right? We don't have enough manpower, we don't have enough people, we don't have enough money. We just spin it up. In the old days, it was a lot harder because you have to have your own uh, your own data center recovery site. Like it makes it a lot easier to spin it up in the cloud, but there's still some work and communication that has to happen to that. Let's see. Yep, that's one we just looked at. So let's keep it pushing. So at a high level, I pulled this out of FEMA's got one. So if you Google FEMA business impact, that's usually for state, right? State and federal, right? So EF is essential functions, right? Identify the essential function output, identify the input requirements, the dependencies and interdependencies. So what are interdependencies? Is a lot of times we have to send files to other organizations, right? We have to send payroll files. We have to send, for us, we used to collect money for other agencies. So when we DR'd, right, how are those IP addresses getting changed? Uh, if we're down, which it's people forget is we get a lot of files. We were queuing them up. If we're down for 30 days, can we queue all those files up, or those files going to start writing over each other? Right? If we drop a file, can we have them regenerate the file, or do we need to be saving these files when we're in DR? Do we need to be writing them to an S3 bucket somewhere so we can pull them all out? One thing that caught me off guard is sometimes the order of the files matter, right? Especially if you're doing accounting, right? If you get a bill before you get the check, the bill might bounce, right? So does the order of the files matter? So that's the stuff you got to figure out when you're doing the DR thing, right? And the thing I always ask, okay, if we down and you sending us files, can we send you? Can we tell you to stop the files and they'll queue up on your side, or do we gotta hold them? So you got to figure out what that's gonna be, because you don't want to lose files. Some of that could be important information. And we were like, okay, we could queue up for a week, but if we down for 3 weeks, we got to move these files somewhere, right? Like I'm an AWS, I'm like, we can put them in cold storage in Glacier, right? For with an S3 bucket to pull them out. But those are some of the questions you need to ask. I never forgot that, because we didn't lose files, but we had files overwriting files in the queue. We like, but we went to the other agencies like, hey, you got to stop these files, man. So once again, are you queuing files, or is it just a API where you send it, we get it, and it's in there? But what if we're down? Right? Nobody ever thinks if we down, what's gonna happen to that file? Are you like, again, are you archive them so you can just resend them in order? Are you sending them up and we need to archive them? But once again, those are questions you need to work through when you do your BI plan, right? That's the interdependencies. Identify leadership who performs the section function. Identify staff. What two is, if you get hit by a plane and your DBAs them out, if you rolling over somewhere else, who's gonna run the system, right? A lot of times there's organizational knowledge. So if the organization's down because y'all got to take it out, who has that knowledge? Now, right, we got documented. So now what we do is some of our tests, we document it, we give it to the other team and say, hey, this is the document. You need to get it up and getting it running, right? Because we want to pay soldiers, pay constituent, pay employees. If we're gone, we still want people to pay. So how does that work? Right? That kind of hurt my feelings. So if I'm out, we still got to pay people, right? When I was at DOD. So identify communication IT requirements. That's with alternative location, resource budgeting, and describe the process flow. And that's going to be in those documents to make sure you get those. And we're going to peek at those a little bit. So our portfolio, we just fired our student poor communication. Watch leadership mistakes, get the CRO involved if you're not. Now, facts, man, facts. Can you provide the link? I will do that. I'll get after the show, GMR. Give me a couple hours. Go back. I'll have it in the description in the video. I'll make sure that happens. I'm thinking the best way to have an effective BI to run and exercise manually without internet connections. So you're gonna do it without internet. If you don't have internet connections, your customers probably won't be able to get in there. So we usually says the system down. We have the internet up, but I see. That's the other one. Usually we go with ransomware took us out, DDoS took us out, malware took us out. So we're forced to move over to our disaster recovery site. A lot of times ransomware too it's going to be on those same IP. So you need alternate URLs so you can do what is an essential function, right? So you have special URLs. Use these URLs because the DDoS don't know about these yet, right? So that's usually how we do it from not without internet connections. Because if internet connections down, then you probably can't do any work. Oh, yeah, that's for us, Mr. Governor. And truly, shout out to I'm struggling today. Caesar them in Vegas, they couldn't get in rooms, so they went to a lot of paper stuff. So now you right, if I call that burning to the ground, Mr. Governor. No, that's true. I call that burning to the ground. Caesar them was escorting people with keys and stuff. So now I've seen burning to the ground, and two is At a certain level, we do that. Like, okay, for this certain client, if they come in from the constituents and our computers are down, how will we do it manually with paper? Right. So we need to stack that paper up so when the computer comes up, we can get that data in there. But like you said, if we had to run paper. I call it burn it to the ground. But the other part of that, Mr. Governor, if I'm doing that, it's not going to be out. It's not going to be all 125 of our business functions. So what top 10 will we suffer to go old school because we had to? And let's focus on the top 10 because either legally, state statute, or this is how we make the majority of a business where we would switch over to paper and pen though. But no, that's a good thing. Appreciate the $5 for the barbecue farm. Pair of characters lifting some weights. Keep. I appreciate you. I appreciate. You. So let's keep going. So that's the FEMA one. That's super heavy once again because they expect first responders. They expect federal and state legal laws, and most private companies don't have that though. But once again, that's kind of where I cut my teeth at with DoD. And two, from a risk perspective, you see there, and we're going to talk about human resources, but from a compliance, reputation, financial risk, you can rate each one of those divisions in there. Leadership loves seeing this. You got to let your CEO, CFO, the C-suite loves seeing that, right? So they get a feeling of what's high. What's high is what's going to get you a big fine from the federal government, right? So that's some of the things you want to bring out when you start going through. Each one of these are business divisions inside. Once again, I worked for a Fortune 500 pharmaceuticals. They probably had 100 divisions spread around the globe, right? And two is don't overthink it. If you got a Fortune 5, just start off with the US, right? You don't have to do everything at one time. And I see that's what a lot of young people in cybersecurity inexperienced. You gotta eat an elephant. We always say, gotta start with the one toenail at a time. So let's go. So and once again, we're gonna walk through it and I'm gonna show you like from a high level, just get started. Just get started. And each quarter, each year, you're gonna get better and better and better. You don't have to hit it out the park with a home run. And a lot of times when auditors come in, they just want to see you started because most companies don't even have this at a high level. So you'll be okay, right? So let's see. Identify the recovery priorities based upon the results of previous systems can more clearly link to critical business. Priority levels can be established and sequencing recovery activities too. Like we talked about, does the files need to be in order? There's certain business functions, they probably need to be processed in order. So what is that order is, you want to make sure you keep that the same when you flow over to DR, right? Or business continuity. And this is the one we're talking about here. So from a C-suite, downtime can be identified in several ways. Maximum allowable downtime represents the total amount the system or system owners, authorizing officials willing to accept for the mission or business process outage or disruption, including all impact, selection of appropriate recovery method, the depth of detail which would be required when developing a recovery procedure. Right, so that's the MTD. This is the RTO, recovery time objective. RTO defines the maximum amount of time the system resource can remain unavailable before there is an unacceptable impact on other systems supported mission. In the MTD, determining information resources RTO is important for selecting the appropriate technologies that are best suited for meeting the maximum time down, right? So once again, we were talking about that. Certain databases have no downtime, right? Because you copy them around the globe, right? Around the regions. Those are going to cost more. So you need to get those requirements, RTO, MTD, and we're talking about RPO, which is recovery point objective. The RPO represents the point in time prior to the disruption of system outage in which the mission business process data can be recovered, given the most recent backup copy of data after an outage. Unlike RTO, RPO is not considered part of downtime, rather it's a factor of how much data loss the mission or business process can tolerate during the recovery, right? So if you backing up once a week, you can lose a week's worth of work, right? you backing up once a day, right? Depending on when it goes down, you could lose 8 hours. Are you syncing that stuff around the globe with the Aurora, where it's syncing it to the millisecond, so you losing zero downtime? And we're gonna look at those once again. I had a short little exercise coming up. Let's see. The mission business process supported by the systems are identified. Impact is the system disruption to the process is determined along the outage impact. Estimated downtime. The downtime should reflect the maximum that an organization can tolerate. All right. So that shows you that's kind of when we're going to start off. Pay vendor, maximum downtime 72 hours. Return up in 48 hours. You can lose 12 hours of last backups, right? So that's how you would do it. Probably, I think I reworded it, right? So theoretically, you get paid every 2 weeks, right? So you got time in those 2 weeks to make sure that pay happens. But once again, you're going to have 25 of these, 30s of these, 50 of these, right? With all those business function laid out, then we could talk about. And two is a lot of times they could say they want no loss for RPO, but when you tell them Aurora is like $40,000 and just doing backwards SQL Server is going to be 10, right? People start making different decisions when you reach out to the DBA and gets those numbers for, once again, how long that's going to take and how long that's going to run, right? So once again, we was looking at the high risk and how that works. And two, this is one where you have the stakeholder input. This is the business function, potential impact. Then that right there shows you what system that business function connects to. So it could be that business function got an app server, web server, and a database and desktops. Return objective, 36 hours. To then the fifth 199, confidential integrity, availability. All right, so that's standard one. I've used that a couple of times. A visual, it's a nice visual, right? So once again, you got the business processing on the left, then the system components on the right, then low, medium, high from the FIPS, confidentiality, integrity, right there. So let's look at this quick chronos when it happened.
One of Central Ohio's biggest employers is working to fix the problems caused by a ransomware attack that crippled its payroll software. Thanks for joining us for NBC4 at 6. I'm Colleen Marshall.
I'm Brad Johansson. Carrie Charles has the day off. One hourly employee reached out to NBC4 Investigates Jamie Ostroff, telling her that she was having trouble getting paid what she was owed.
That's not cool when you're not getting paid. So that's the one we're gonna walk through. That happened last year. I thought it was 2 years ago. That says that happened last Christmas, man. So let's see real quick. What is this internet equity from FCC? Let's see. We'll get to that one. Let's keep going.
Yeah, so this isn't just isolated to Ohio Health. Ohio Health is just one of about 27,000 employers that rely on the resources systems. Kronos announced last month that it had been hit by a ransomware attack, leaving its clients to find alternative solutions to pay its workers. Ohio Health did manage to get those paychecks out, but due to one employee's circumstance, she pointed out an issue with the system. This Ohio Health employee didn't want to be.
That's not cool. I think you should show your face, man. I mean, if the company's not doing what they're supposed to do, but that's why we do the BIA. That's why we do DR. That's why we do COOT. And part of that is walk through scenarios like this so people can get paid, and hopefully we have a good plan and we have a disaster recovery or alternative payment method so people can get paid. So.
Identified out of concern that it would impact her job.
I just thought it needed to be out there. People really needed to understand the impact of this.
After Kronos announced in mid-December that its human resources software had been targeted in a ransomware attack, the thousands of employers that use the software came up with different ways to make sure workers wouldn't miss a paycheck. This employee told me Ohio Health paid hourly workers the average of the last 3 pay periods prior to the attack. But in her case, there was a problem. She was on leave during those pay periods.
I was on an FMLA getting 70% of my pay on those 3 checks that they did.
Bro, you need a better club. I'm sure I can figure out who you are, but that's a whole different thing. Let's see what my man got to say.
Decided to take the average from.
Now back from leave, the worker says she's still getting 70% of her pay for doing 100% of her job. She talked to HR about it last week.
And they said that I need to talk to my manager and they need to submit a payroll correction. Well, you're not allowed to submit payroll corrections at this time.
Did they give you any timeline at all?
No, there is no timeline. They said they will take care of it.
We are processing corrections to reflect actual hours as soon as they're available, said a statement from Ohio Health. We are committed to ensuring associates receive pay for the hours they have worked in supporting our patients and their families. But for this employee, it's not a matter of if Ohio Health will correct the issue, it's when.
For the little guys that are clocking in and out every day, this is detrimental. I mean, I don't know what to do. Do I starve for 2 weeks or do I pay my mortgage?
Kronos announced Sunday that it's reaching out to clients this week, at which point the company will have a better idea of when its systems will be back up and running. A spokesman for Ohio Health told me today they do have an open line of communication with Kronos right now, and they are actively working on a way to accurately track the hours their employees are working. And I do want to add that in reporting the story, the Ohio Health spokesperson did offer to give this employee his contact information to try and connect her with any resources within the hospital system that could help. She seemed very grateful. And once I hear back, I'll definitely provide an update, but I hope she gets the help she needs.
Attacks, though, they can just cause so many problems.
Brutal.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
So that's a real life thing we talking about. So let's get back on it. So I just so that's kind of what we're going to hit on and kind of walk through this quick exercise. Let's see. Let's see what said. Kronos employee might be scared. Oh, he's scared of retaliation. He should did a better job. That's a big white dude with the long hair, man, with the big beard. So appreciate you, Wayne Wallace. Yep. Give me comments on the video. Appreciate you. Catch me on the replay. So let's keep going real quick. So if you look at this is Kronos. Well, this is Kronos at the top. So they got a mobile app, web app. So they got some payroll stuff at the top where they print your payrolls at. Send it to a database. So obviously they got attacked, right? So they got tacked out the box. The cool thing is, you got to talk about your architecture and how that's going to work and how you're going to do it, right? So human resources, like we talked about, BA, what business functions do you have? You got payroll, training, benefits, offboarding, onboarding. We know they got 25 things or so, but we're just going to hit the top big ones. So we came in the meeting, so we said, okay, out of all of these, we want to make sure payroll is going to happen, right? From a BIA standpoint, from a DR standpoint, from a COOP standpoint, incident response standpoint, right? We want to make sure everybody gets paid. So when they did their business function, payroll was in there. So that's what we did. So once again, you meet with them. They're going to write down their functions. We're going to talk about them. Then we're going to pick some, right? We're going to pick some. Then we're going to send them up to the C-suite. Then the C-suite is going to make sure those are the ones they want you to pick, right? So, but once again, you get each division starting at their level, get them thinking, get them talking about it. Fact. Tom is out of here. Shout out to the rest be like, I know that shoes. Facts. I think I could have picked you. What about the systems that handle bond remediation? We can put them in there. It just depends. Ty. The management's got to make that decision, Ty. Management got to make it. So let's say we pick payroll out of their 3. So then we're gonna keep it moving. Not the payroll. We talked about the RTO. We're just gonna say it's 24 hours. We can't. RPO is how much data you can lose. We can say only 1 hour. Maximum downtime, 2 weeks per pay period, right? So that's the RTO, the RPO, and the MTD, right? So those are the things we were talking about. So we face smile. So those are what we're trying to make happen. Those are our requirements right now that we're going to DR, right? So people say, how do you get requirements for this? Are the requirements, right? How long? What's the maximum downtime? How much data can we lose? And the maximum downtime. I'm sorry, the RTO. So those are the times, and those are your requirements that moves on once again to your BIA and your incident response. Right, that's how we do. So payroll. What are some things we got to make sure? We got to have timekeeping software, the holidays, so we can make sure we pay bonuses or special rewards. Right. I like how they figured it out. Like we just gonna give you the last 3 weeks. we just giving that to you, right? Then two for us, it's on internal system legacy. It's on a 2019 where we upgraded SQL Server. It's got some old ASP code. It's on one server, no high availability or load balancing, and we're doing nightly backups. All right, so if we're doing nightly backups, we're gonna lose more than 1 hour depending on when that happens, right? So that's something we need to figure out. Two is, and this happens a lot when you start figuring out where systems are, you're like, this system is not acceptable. So we need at least to need to get some high availability, get some clustering in there, or get two cheaper servers and load balancing them between two payroll systems. So we got to figure out how to do that from a high availability. So a lot of times when you start, and that's the cool thing about this, you said, okay, payroll we need to do. These are the things in payroll we need to happen. Then we look at the system. You go for this system that we mark in high availability, high we need to DR. We need to get the the system up to speed, right? We need to make sure it's at a high level, once again, high availability and load balance. So a lot of times, so when you see that and you start identifying issues with systems, right, it might not be ransomware. Your system could go down in the future and you'll be in problems, right? That's the cool thing when you start digging into systems and legacy systems, right? So what are we trying to do? We saw the resource requirement. It's a pay file. So if the third-party system is down Kronos, we want to ship a pay file to an alternate pay system, such as ADP. All right. So we're gonna get the new file format for ADP. So if some reason Kronos is down, we need to take that pay file and be able to hit a button, XML conversion, JSON version, and run it in something. And we need to be able to get it in a new ADP file format, right? So everybody can get paid. All right, so this is one of the Kronos, as you see at the top. It's the SAP Kronos. That's your pay file and time data CSV. We got an SFTP file. We secure copying. It's a .csv. Down here, you see our employees essential. So I put them out there. I'm like, okay, is that a secure copy? Obviously, that's TLS. Is that 1213? What is the actual time data CS? Are we encrypting that and signing that and hashing that so we know if anybody changed it? Right. So we got to put some new security requirements on it and make sure it's better. And this you see at the top is the ADP file. So here is us, create the data flow for the hires. We send it to ADP. Everybody gets paid, and we don't have my man with the big hair snitching on us to the news, right? So we got to handle business now. Shout out to him, right? So that's once again employee data from ISIM, send it to the hires, get it to ADP to print, right? So ADP is our backup if for some reason Kronos got hit, right? So when we did our BAA, right, we said payroll was at the top. It was on an old system. We would send it to Kronos. Now we know Kronos, we need to get to the new file format for ADP so we can send it there and get paid so we won't be on the news with people saying they can't pay their rent or their mortgage, right? We not looking good. We're not looking good, right? So at the bottom, some security issues. As a file encrypted and signed? Is it TLS 1.3 when we're doing a secure copy? Are we hashing the file too to make sure no one changed the file? Theoretically, if a pay file goes through, if I put my bank account in there, all the numbers are still going to add up. But instead of going to my man with the big hair, I'm getting his check, right? Or if I just change everybody, take $10 off of 10,000 people and send them to my bank account, like that old Superman movie with Richard Pryor. A lot of y'all probably wasn't born, right? But could you steal the money before people get it? So we want to put a couple security checks in there on the way. So I think that's about it. I want to hit it at a high level. I didn't want to go too late since I started at 10 my time, right? So I'm gonna hang out for any questions. So let me know if that kind of if you got any questions. So let's see. I'm gonna go back up. So human resources, these were their business functions. So we picked payroll as something we want to make happen. CC Swan signed off on that. RTO, we had those the hours. Those are our requirements. We probably need a new database. Payroll, timekeeping, holiday bonuses. I like how they did it. They didn't have the actual files because I guess they were putting the information inside Chronos system. I want to put it on our legacy system and send it. So we should be able to have the correct hours, right? As long as we don't get ransomware, but long as we have the pay file on our system when we send it, so we should have the correct numbers to send to ADP and from our side. Once again, if third-party systems down, we're going to ship the pay file alternative pay system ADP. We're going to put it in a new file format because it was a different ADP file format. I should have printed out. It looked like it was a COBOL file to be exact. So that was the Cronus one. You got the time data CSV. Secure copy, you probably using keys with the TLS. You see your employee central down there, us sending the data files. Then who? This is us sending it, the new one to ADP at the top. This is us adding some security features at the bottom. PBO couldn't help itself. We want to make sure we're a little more locked down. So that's it. I appreciate you, Mr. Governor. And to the barbecue fund. Did I highlight that? Yep. Shout out to, there it is. Shout out to the $10. Thank you, PBO, for the learnings. I appreciate it. Once again, Aiken getting on me. I'm getting my class ready. I've been saying that for a year now. So I'm hoping to do a GRC class and make this, put it in more of a learning. For the new vendors, for the new people, I taught 10 years at a local community college. I taught cybersecurity for about 10 years. Me and the millennials didn't get along, so it was time for PBL to retire and do a few things, do a little different. Shout out to my man, GMR. I'm dragging the scene. I'm so glad I work remote. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm lucky. And I did a couple videos on that. I get to work remote all day, every day. I think I got to go in once every 6 months. We do team building. I think that's what they're going to do. So I'm lucky with that scenario. I know hybrid. The state I work for, my contract in, they went to hybrid, which makes sense. The governor wants people to come downtown and have lunch, so he's making his 40,000 contractors and government employees. I work in the state of Indiana. To come downtown, go to your satellite office, go out and have lunch to help save the restaurant. So I do respect him doing that, right? That just because I respect it don't mean I have to like it, right? Though, but no, shout out to him. I understand why he was doing it. So let's say that I didn't say a word tonight. I think you had enough of my positive rise. It's all good, man. It's all good. I like when you do that. That keeps me motivated, man. So I was thinking creating a small cybersecurity business for my pipeline. I've done that a little bit. Ty, I did it off of Upworks. It was super hard. What really makes it hard, which is good and bad, is you're bidding with people around the planet. So certain, I was doing Oracle work. Man, they were doing Oracle work for $15 an hour. I was like, oh, I don't open up my laptop that. I got a lot of, not a lot of work. Well, I made 20 grand 2 years ago doing that. I got a lot of NIST work. I got a lot of CMC work, policies and procedures. Cybersecurity from a technology standpoint, a lot of people around the world do that stuff super cheap, Ty. Not saying you can't do it. I'm just throwing, that was my experience when I was on Upwork. Stuff like NIST, HIPAA, FedRAMP, they want that work done in the United States, and they were trying to get federal work. Once again, the federal work says you got to do it in CONUS, the continental United States. The cool thing is, and I need to stop saying it. Shout out to Aiken, is I was gonna do that in the my classes. We would bid on work in Upworks and Fiverr, right? Just bidding on it's gonna make you better, because stuff like this you got to lay out in a proposal, right? So that gets you understanding on how you bid work, which relates to RFPs and RFIs, right? So So you kind of doing it as you responding to their job description, like it's a request for a proposal, request for information, because you got to tell them how you're going to do it and how you're going to charge for that. Once again, it took me a while to figure out my niche, because some of that stuff I was like, oh no, I can't do it for that price. But so I was thinking about that, doing that in my class once again, because it's like reading a request for proposal and request for inquiry, which I think is I ain't gonna say new thing for cybersecurity, but cybersecurity inside RPs and R5, you gotta have security language, and I did a video on that procurement. Reading your contract, making sure they're actually doing HIPAA or doing this, or my specialty IRS Pub 1075. So I think all that kind of lines up with that time. Let's see, I hang out for any more questions. So I just wanted to touch on that. Nah, Aiken, you all good. I like when you say that. That gets me motivated. That gets me motivated. I just been studying for the CISP test, and it's just not going well. So I don't know, I gotta get more motivated. I think that's my issue with it. AWS stuff, I really love that. That's CISP. I'm like, man, I gotta bear down on that. But it's all good. Once again, I'm gonna hang out, see if anybody got any more questions. Once again, I just wanted to, I was in Dr. Ozier Simply Cyber Discord, and somebody asked me a BIA question. And a lot of questions, I usually have a video, and I thought I should have a video for BIA, business impact analysis. So I want to do this video. Like I said, a lot of people ask me questions. A lot of times I send them a video, then we can sit down and talk about it. Because then you get my perspective, and sometimes it helps clarify. Shout out to my man from Australia, is not in here. He told me I need to make some 20-minute videos. All my videos are long form like this. They're like an hour and a half. So he said he liked it, but he said I should go through it and start splitting them up, though. Because a lot of times I'm hitting certain subjects and I can split up into separate videos. But I'm old school, just grind through it. Pause it and grind through it. So let's see what Aiken said. If you're struggling with the CISP, then no, I don't think it's from a knowledge standpoint, Aiken. I just think I'm just tired. It's been a long year. I switched from consulting firm to a new firm. So I think, and two is, I'll be 56 this year, man. I just don't memorize like I used to. So I think it's a little of all of that, Aiken. I don't think. And two is, and I argue with people about this, it's a management test. So a lot of that stuff is, it's not, I ain't gonna say it's not practical, but a lot of stuff you're never gonna even kind of use. I took it in 2000, and my buddy looked it up. I took it in 2008, and I missed it by 6 questions, and I should have took it again. He passed it by like 10. Nobody killed it, and nobody really flunked it. Everybody was kind of around the mean. So half of DOD didn't pass, and the other half passed. The long story short, they came out and said, "Oh, you just need Security Plus now," because the job I'm in wasn't an IA3, it was actually IA2. So I took the Security Plus, and I should have went back and took the CISP. Every now and then, especially with remote jobs, I think they're using search to cut people off. If you go on Indeed, I talked to before I got my current job, I talked to a recruiter. He said 300 people signed up for a lot of remote jobs. Like I was making it to the last 3, but I didn't get like 3 or 4 I didn't get. So I asked him, he said, dude, 300 people applied for this job. I was like, wow. So I think from a remote standpoint, and a lot of big companies are making you come back. So I think remote jobs are getting smaller and smaller. So the competition is getting fierce and fierce. So I think the CISP, a lot of companies are using CISP to cut because they get 200-300 resumes, so they're using something to cut, right? I get a lot of CISPs asking me questions. I appreciate it, Josh. I appreciate it. Stand up, some of CISPs don't online live stream. No, that's true. That's true. I got so it's getting better. The crazy thing is, like, dude, we still memorizing ports, man. I was doing that at like 2005 or 7. I need to look at what my buddy was talking about, because we took it together. We actually drove to Ohio and took it. So but yeah, that was a big mistake by PBO. I should have went back and took it after I passed my Security Plus, because you had to have one or they were gonna fire you. So I got my Security Plus, and I should have went right back and got the CISP. the cool thing is though, I studied the CISP so hard, it made the Security Plus super easy. So, but let's see, me too. I used to read and retain vitamins. That's what I have to take a break. Yeah, I'll be 56 this year, man, and I'm like, oh my god. And two is I'm not super passionate about it. I got 4 AWS certs. I loved AWS. I got to get back to lab, and I'm gonna start showing my AWS lab. I think I'm gonna do the SFT transfer family. Somebody asked me, what's the Move It's getting hacked all the time. So somebody said, what would I replace Move It with? I told them AWS transfer family, and this is the reason why. You can move stuff to an S3 bucket, and the S3 bucket will fire a Lambda. You can trigger it, move it, transform it, insert it into a database, put it in a data lake. Right. So I think the next one I'm gonna do is AWS SFTP. Talking about if I got rid of Move It, what would I use? That's it. Yeah, but I got other, getting older, there's always issues with it. But like my mom said, what's the alternative? So let's say the goods for that. Nah, I like when you say that. Say the goodies for the membership. So yeah, that's my goal. So I'll probably check out Dr. Ozier's class, and I want to build mine on top of his. Once again, like we talked about, actually do a BIA as an assignment. I'm actually going to use a LMS, learning management system. So you have quizzes and tests in there to see where you at. Two is have you do a policy and procedure, then take the policies and procedure and figure out what findings you left out or why this policy is not good, and how you would document it in the findings so that company would know what to fix. So I recently passed. Okay, that's cool. The weird thing is a friend of mine got it. Congratulations on that. And I didn't know because I think CISP has like 7, like you said, versions of it with those different concentrations. And I read only like 5 people or 10 people have all the CISP. I'm calling them domains and stuff, like you said, the ISAP, the ECP. Not a lot of them have that. So I thought that was interesting. When a ton of people, one guy I saw a guy posted, he said it was like less than 100 that had it, all the CISPs designations. So I'm like, do I want to try that? I'm like, no, no, that doesn't sound attractive. As Cat Williams, that doesn't sound attractive. But now, congratulations on that. The crazy thing is they just changed their HIPAA. They're discontinuing the CISP HIPAA. They switching it to like 3 different CISP domains for the HIPAA part. So once I do the CISP, I might do the HIPAA because shout out to my man Ty. HIPAA gets a lot of work in side jobs. I think hospitals don't have a lot of money, so I think a lot of people get a lot of side work doing HIPAA stuff. So I think the CISP, excuse me, was had a designation for HIPAA, but it switched to something else. So I was looking at that. So, well, I think I'm out today, fellas. I want to appreciate everybody coming out, and 2 is I want to wish everybody a happy hump day tomorrow. Let's get it. It's out there to get. 2 is if you need anything, just reach out to me, professorblackops@gmail.com. Since I'm an ex-professor, give me 48 hours to respond. And if you want to talk to me, we can hook it up on this software I'm using right now, Restream. I always put it on private. You don't have to cam up. I won't record it, and we can have a conversation. The cool thing is I talked to a young lady from the continent. I think she was from Nigeria. I talked to a young gentleman from Australia the same week, which I thought that was interesting, and some Australia and somebody from the UK. So I thought that was interesting. The PBO in Little Indiana talking to people all over the planet. Salute to Brother Michael. And 2 is if you want a certain video, just put it on one of my other videos. If you want me to talk about a specific topic or a specific subject or break something down, 9 times out of 10, I probably have a video I can send you because especially if it's around NIST and assessment and audit, I have a few of those. So 2 is I think I'm gonna make a NIST assessment playlist, And at the end of the month, I think I could put my playlist and just let it play on live. Then I'll just be on there answering questions. So I think I might try that. Salute to everybody. Everybody have a good, I was going to say weekend. Everybody have a good hump day. Everybody have a good holiday. Be safe. People crazy out here. Cybersecurity and in the real world. Once again, I'm Professor Black Ops. Reach out to me. ProfessorBlackOps@gmail.com. And we can definitely chop it up. I'm out. Everybody have a nice night.